Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Secret History, living inside your aquarium. I say hello with the tweezers, trying to keep these guys a little nervous so I can show you how they school and shoal. And they do so with other fish, which is great. Now, which fish are we spotlighting today? Dun, dun, dun. Well, you already know from the title. We're talking about these beautiful champagne-colored fish, the Beckford pencilfish, sometimes called the golden pencilfish, and named after, drumroll please, F.J.B. Beckford. And their Latin name is Nannostomus Bickfordi. So he was a naturalist from Great Britain, and he traveled the world on steamship, and he actually brought back over 300 species on this one voyage, where he toured Suriname and French Guiana, as well as Brazil and Venezuela a little bit, and he really explored the heart of this fish's range. Now, their name, Nannostoma, let's break that down in Greek for you. So Greek and then into Latin, I suppose. Most names in taxonomy seem to be a little bit of both these days. They like to do a little ode to the Greek and Latin, but Latin is derived from Greek essentially. So it is nana, or small, and stoma, mouth. Nannostomas, so small mouth. Beckfordii is a Latin word meaning named after F.J.B. Beckford. So, beautiful fish. Here's another pencilfish with it, a three-lined pencilfish. But we're not talking about them today. We're talking about these little champagne beauties. And they are one of the most beautiful, yet I think they're subtly beautiful if you look at them. Just subtly beautiful schooling fish in a very affordable range, and I happen to love these fish. Aquatic Arts has a really nice collection point of them that are tank bred currently, if you're looking for them and don't have them at your local store, but they are very common, so your local fish store may well have them. So these fish are different colors depending on where they were collected. Remember I said that he explored a large range? Well, he collected 5 different fish that he thought were 5 different species, and they were all genetically proven to be these fish in the 1990s. So they can come in a wide array of colors, and depending on where you live, if you live somewhere like Singapore or Tokyo or Prague, for instance, or Berlin, you may have access to some of the other color forms. But in the United States, you're usually going to find this gold pencilfish type, which is what we're looking at here. And even though it's called the gold pencilfish, it's generally a peach to champagne to sometimes downright red color with a black line and 2 tones of that reddish color on the top of their body, with then a blue to purple iridescence in their fins, and specifically in their anal fin and their pectoral fin, and sometimes it'll be in their dorsal fin and caudal fin or tail fin a little bit as well. When they're spawning, you'll see that shimmering, that metallic shimmering all over their body, and the places on the males that tend to be red will just color up a gorgeous burgundy or purple, depends on the type you have. Now, the other pro, if you have tank raised ones like these ones or the ones Aquatic Arts has right now, is that they were fed flake food and things like that as babies. So they weren't foraging for micro crustaceans like shrimp. So if you have a tank like this one here with lots of other nano fish, not much space, maybe it's 10, 15, 20 gallons, and you've got little shrimp, little fry of some sort, or maybe even just tiny barbs or other fish in there that are in the, the microrasboras and things like that, you won't have a problem with these guys eating them. So that's a big plus in the fish world in my mind, is that they're definitely adult shrimp safe, but they're even pretty juvenile Neocaridina and Caridina shrimp safe. So that's a big plus. Now, this fish was discovered in 1872 on that voyage. I'm sure the locals knew about them long before, but they were discovered, brought back, and quickly actually became a favorite. And that's because they're a pretty hardy fish. They are able to survive in lower temperatures because of how close they live to that Atlantic coastline, where they get the monsoons rolling in, the wet season. And even though they're on the equator, sometimes all that moisture can be pretty cold, being that it's evaporated moisture from the ocean. And that can drop as cold as, 55, 60 degrees sometimes when the monsoon season starts, when the wet season, I guess it's not called a monsoon in South America, but when the wet season starts, that can be the case. And because of this, they can withstand that. And then during the dry season, they find their way in streams and puddles and lakes, all the way into little shallow areas and recesses and eddies along the stream, where they are feeling safe, usually in heavily vegetated, there's native plants galore in that region where they live, and so they really like having some foliage in the tank. So whether you have some Kabamba, some Myriaphyllum, or a nice Rotala or a Ludwigia, some fine leaf plants with stems are also really nice to have for them, because their patterns are built for it. It's designed to let them blend in with the dark lines of the plants and the light lines of the leaves, as you can see. And even that pink color that comes out, that champagne, is very present in a lot of these species that are from South America also. So they are an easy to care for fish that will take all the way down to 60-degree water sustained, and they can also tolerate up to 86-degree Fahrenheit water in the warm season. So if you're treating for ick or something like that in a tank, they're also going to be okay, which is great. Now, to keep them at an optimal temperature, I would suggest to keep them around 72 to 76, and then when you want to spawn them, you will raise that temperature up slowly over 2 or 3 weeks, and you'll raise that temperature up to the 78 to 82 range, and that will get them in the mood for, listening to Barry White. So when you're ready to do that, make sure to feed them lots of live food if you can. If you can't do live food, frozen food. Get some Daphnia or bloodworms or vinegar eels, microworms, whatever you can get your hands on. Live is best, frozen is second best, and of course powder or flake or granule is, last resort or their daily food. So if you reserve it for special times, then they'll really know to queue up and get ready to spawn. And so if you can, you'll identify the males from females, and the way you'll do that is you will look for the ones with the big round bellies, as you would with all Characin form fish, like tetras or rasboras. So this one may well be a female with that bigger belly right kind of under the midsection. Towards the head rather than in the exact middle of the fish. And then if you look at their tail fin, the really nice thing about this fish is you can definitely tell their sex quickly. So that's a male that we're looking at there. You see the rounded fin? That would indicate that it was a male. If it has a caudal or tail fin that has straight lines, so it doesn't have curves around the tips, and it comes to points on the tail, then it's a female, plus that belly, and then the males will have more color. So that's one really easy way to tell a fish, which is nice in this hobby where sometimes it's not so easy. Up here we have, they're moving quick and their fins are translucent, but I was trying to show you female right here, right there, versus male right there. Hard to see, I know, but if you're in person, you'll be able to tell. And that beautiful iridescent blue really comes out when they get ready to spawn. You see it on the tips of their fins. It can light up their whole finnage. So what should you feed them? Well, I kind of ran over what you should feed them ideally to spawn them, and what you should feed them to spawn them is what you should feed them if you want to make them really happy all the time. Now, they are foragers, scavengers, omnivores, and so they will like a varied diet. They want some protein. Insects and algae are their primary diet, and little forms of plankton, microcrustaceans, and so forth are the next form of food that they like to go after. And so if you give them a daily flake food that can float on top and then kind of sink after a little while, slowly sinking flake food or granules is ideal. They can be a little timid, and sometimes they'll not go after the food right away. If you have other top feeders like guppies in the tank or other tetras that are more aggressive, be careful, because they can get outcompeted and they'll just get nervous and go away and not eat. But if you can either feed 2 spots at once or have food that spreads out, protein-based foods have fatty lipids, and so they kind of sit like oil and water mixes, which is not at all. And so it kind of drifts apart on the surface level of on the surface area of the water if you've got a high protein food. So I like feeding them their daily food, being Aquarium Co-op easy fry food, but any sort of crushed, Tetra flake food or Sarah flake food for tropical fish will work well. And then I like to switch it up with something more high protein based, like bloodworms that I'll grind up or cut up, and also black worms or anything like that. If you can get it live is awesome. Once or twice a week. Don't spoil them too much, because otherwise you won't be able to get them to spawn as readily, in my experience. So controlling the temperature and that live food, if you do that, you can really decide when they are going to get ready to color up and do their thing. And when they do it is at the end of the dry season, as the rains are coming. And so what you want to do is you want to either have a very well planted tank. Like I said, they come from very vegetated regions. So have a well planted tank. You want the TDS, the total dissolved solids, you want that to be on the higher end of what they can take. But they do like soft water. Now they live, like I said, in the jungles, but there is some limestone in their range that the jungle rivers flow over. And because of that, their TDS gets up to around 220 or 230 parts per million. And so it's pretty good to keep their TDS most of the year under 150 if you can. They like that soft water, and if you can throw lots of leaves in, catappa leaves or wood, that's catappa's Indian almond leaves, or you can throw in cholla wood or manzanita, whatever you've got on hand that will put out tannins and kind of make the water a tea-stained color. They are a great blackwater fish, and that champagne neon color just bang, it really sparkles. Get some green neon tetras with them and get 2 schools, champagne and that turquoise. Man, they look beautiful together. Not overwhelming, not overpowering, but just in harmony with the tank. So they work well with rasboras, also the micro rasboras, whether chili rasboras, phoenix rasboras. Those won't outcompete, and they'll kind of work together as if they're the same species. So all that said, put them into a tank. If you're not colony breeding them, put them into a tank and raise the TDS up to that 200 range, 230, 220, and then drop it down to 150 or 1 in one water change by using distilled water or really fresh water. If you can get bottled water, if you don't have low TDS water locally, go ahead and do that. And then feed them live food, and you've separated the males and females ideally into 2 sections of the tank, or 2 different tanks, or 2 pens, however you want to do it. You could put the males and females, one in the main tank and one in, say, a breeding tank, but split them by gender, and feed them both live food for 2 weeks, and then put them together, do the big water change, drop that temperature from that 84 or 82 that they've been at down to, say, 70, and do that by adding 55 or 60 degree water, 40%, 30% change to the tank. And then feed them that Daphnia or brine shrimp, whatever it may be, and they will lay eggs every morning, sometimes every evening, for the next 2 to 3 days if those females are nice and swollen and the males are looking nice and colorful. And if you use AstroTurf that's nice and stiff, the eggs will fall in between that, and you'll be able to collect them or you can just move the fish out of there after 3 days. And 3 to 5 days after being laid, those eggs will hatch. You will have little wrigglers that just have yolk sacs. They'll live on their yolk sac for the next 48 to 94 hours, kind of depends on how much protein has been in their diet and vitamins and all that. And then they will need to be eating something very, very small, like infusoria. If you don't know what that is, you can look up my video on that, how to make it. Just throw some lettuce or cucumber, zucchini, whatever it may be, into some water from the tank and let it sit for a while, and that cloudy stuff that comes out is actually life, and that's what those little fish will eat. They'll eat that or plankton. They'll probably eat whatever's in a seasoned tank. If it's year-old tank water, if you've had the tank running for over a year and haven't nuked it with antifungal or anti-parasite medication many times, it should contain quite a bit of life if you were to look under the microscope. That's what the fry will eat for the first month or so. Then you can switch them to vinegar eels, small daphnia, baby brine shrimp, whatever floats your boat, and you can raise them from there. They're a really easy first fish to raise as far as egg scatterers go, and tetras and rasboras and all that sort of thing. So, an easy, beautiful fish that is a wonderful addition to any tank. The Beckfordi pencilfish, I highly recommend them. Also, get something like gouramis can be a bit nippy. This is a female powder blue dwarf, so she's okay. But something, if you've got something like a Siamese algae eater or a pleco or something like that, even cories can serve to kind of stir them up, to keep their color bright and vivid, to keep them moving and shoaling together as kind of a uniform group, but not so scared that they don't eat and that they, turn white because they're so stressed and they actually get sick. So I wouldn't really put them with angelfish or larger cichlids for the most part. These ones are with some crebensis and some nanostoma or nanochromis, species also, but it's well planted, so it all works out. It's enough movement and bigger fish to keep them a little on edge, but ready to color up and very dynamic. So I highly recommend these fish. I want to talk more about the incredible voyage of the naturalist Beckford, and I will do so on the channel in the future. So if you want to learn about that and many other things, species spotlights, different plants, and many other pencilfish in the near future, stay tuned to the channel, click the little bell, and leave me a comment what your favorite pencilfish is. Or, if it doesn't exist, tell me what colors you like if you don't know what it is, and I'll let you know if I can give you one that looks like that. There are a lot of pencilfish and a lot of variants out there. They're a great fish, and if you know a little bit about them and their backstory, their habitat, and all these things that we've talked about in this video, I think you'll have great success with them, and they're a beautiful addition to any aquascape tank or any community tank that's planted. So enjoy. I will talk to you next time. Take care. Good night. Goodbye.